I'll call this meeting of the Johnson City City Commission to order for this Thursday, June the 3rd, 2001. And we'll begin the meeting with our invocation led by Pastor Wherry, Executive Director at First Priority Blue Ridge. So if you'll all stand.
Let's pray. Dear Heavenly Father, before we come to you with the business of the city, we come to you and lift up our city in prayer. We pray for the city of Johnson City, Tennessee, that our city would be a place of peace. God, may the love your neighbors, of your commandment, spread through our community. May you strengthen and restore families and build unity despite our differences in our community. God, we pray for our city to be a city of safety. We pray for our police and our first responders and everyone that comes in our medical field and industry that comes together to keep us safe and healthy. We pray for us to be a city of wisdom. We pray for our city leaders, including this commission. May you give them godly wisdom that brings glory to your name. Pray for our schools to be a place of learning and wisdom, and pray for the leaders there and lift up that entire community to you as they take a break for the summer and head into the fall, God, and that schools are somewhat back to normal from the disruption of COVID in the fall. We pray for our city to be a city of your glory, for our churches, God, to unite across denominations and be a place of revival and truth, and a place of life and not death, and a place we can find your truth and your gospel. God, we pray these things for our city in the mighty name of Jesus. Amen.
Amen. If you'll join me in the pledge. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Mr. Peterson.
Thank you, Mayor. Your first order of business is consideration of the minutes of your meeting held on Thursday, May 20th.
Are there modifications or a motion?
Move to approve.
I second.
We have a motion and a second. If there's not objection, we'll call the roll.
Commissioner Brock,
Yes.
Commissioner Hunter,
Yes.
Commissioner Murphy,
Yes.
Vice Mayor Fowler.
Yes.
Mayor Wise.
Yes.
Next order of business is the presentation of a proclamation recognizing June 6th through the 12th as the National Garden Week in Johnson City, Tennessee. And if those present to receive the proclamation would come forward, please.
Come on up.
All right, I'll read the proclamation. Whereas gardeners have a passion for nurturing the beauty and resources of the earth through the sowing of seeds and the care of plants, and whereas gardening is a challenging and productive activity for citizens of all ages and experience levels, including those just learning and those having years of experience, and whereas gardening promotes a healthy lifestyle that reduces stress and teaches that rewards come from diligent efforts, and whereas gardening adds nutrition, beauty, fragrance, and splendor to our lives through the growing of herbs, vegetables, foliage, and flowers, and whereas gardeners beautify our community, enhancing quality of life for our citizens, and whereas gardeners advocate the importance of all creatures, large and small, in their roles in a balanced and productive ecology, and whereas National Garden Week encourages members of garden clubs across the country and worldwide to serve others in communities where they reside and work, here's the part you've been waiting for. Now, therefore, I, Joseph C. Wise, the mayor of Johnson City, do hereby proclaim June 6th through 12 as National Garden Week. So I will present that to you. And I thank you. I just remembered I have a lot of weeding to do. So I'll pass that down. If you'll just introduce yourself, we'll let everyone know who is here to accept it.
I'm Cindy Hintz of Shady Oaks Garden Club.
I'm Katja Kaverina, Garden Club member.
Mickey Grossman, Garden Club.
Nancy Fishman, Garden Club.
Ann Reed, Garden Club.
Sarah Bowers, Garden Club.
We thank you all, and good luck gardening. Thank you.
Thank you all.
Next, if we could ask Connie Deegan to come forward, please. We'd like to recognize Connie with a resolution recognizing her as Conservation Educator of the Year.
Yours has a lot more words on it. It's 4 whereases, but a lot more words. Whereas Connie Deegan was first employed by the City of Johnson City on the 8th of May, 2010, and was subsequently promoted to become the Nature Program Coordinator for the Parks and Recreation Department. And whereas Connie Deegan turned her lifelong passion for nature and wildlife into a career as a naturalist and herpetologist, developing a variety of programs for parks and recreation classes, camps, and seminars geared towards nature and wildlife on Buffalo Mountain, at Jacobs Nature Park, Winged Deer Park, the Kiefhofer Farm, and at various locations throughout the community. And whereas Connie Deegan is a passionate advocate for protecting nature and the environment, sharing her enthusiasm through instructional programs, projects, partnerships, a weekly nature column, and periodic features in the local media. And whereas at the 56th Annual Conservation Achievement Awards, the Tennessee Wildlife Federation recognized Connie Deegan's dedication and commitment by naming her as Conservation Educator of the Year for outstanding achievement in educating others on conservation. Now therefore be it resolved by the Johnson City Board of Commissioners to congratulate Connie Deegan for this outstanding recognition and honor, and extend appreciation for her outstanding service to the community. So, thank you very much.
Thank you, Mayor, and thank you, Commissioners, very much for this recognition. I really appreciate it. And now I know why people always say, I'm so honored when something like this happens, because I am so honored. Thank you very much.
Well, Mayor, if I could say something, the City of Johnson City and the citizens of Johnson City, it's such a privilege for us to have someone like Connie here working for the city and serving the citizens. If you've never been on a hike or any kind of Connie's programs, I want to encourage everybody to sign up for something. She just brings to life nature around us. My grandchildren have been in some of her classes as well, and they just keep talking about things that you say and things that she took me on a hike up to the top of Buffalo Mountain, and things that she saw along the trail I wouldn't have seen in a million years at all. And so we are very, very honored to have you, Connie. Thank you so much for representing the city so well, but representing nature so well. And I know your major message to our citizens is what we can do to lessen our impact on the environment. And you do a great job of doing that. So congratulations. And we're the ones who gain all the privilege from having you here. One more.
Is it on?
Connie, one more.
Connie, I would like to express gratitude. I want to thank you on behalf of this community as well for all your hard work and dedication to educating others and preserving nature and our environment. That's very, very important. And congratulations on this outstanding achievement as the Conservation Educator of the Year. Go, Connie. God bless you.
Conserve all out.
Your next order of business is consider approval of a road closure request for the Downtown Yoga Festival. This is a request to close part of King Street from 6 a.m. to 9 p.m. on Saturday, June the 12th. The request has been approved and the request has been reviewed and recommended for approval.
If you'll state your name and address for the record, and then any comments about your request.
Okay, my name is Kim Blaine. I'm the owner of Downtown Yoga Center. That's at 122 Spring Street, Johnson City, 604. We are hosting, along with the Blue Plum Organization, the Downtown Yoga Festival. That will be on Saturday, June the 12th, with the only road that we're requesting closed to be King Street. That that's for our stage. And we plan on being there all day long. It's a 7 a.m. to 9 p.m. event with just different kinds of yoga classes going on all day. And there's some vendor tents set up in the grassy areas over there. But as far as what we request from you all, it's just King Street closure.
Are there questions for the petitioner, applicant?
Move for approval.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. If there's not objection, we'll call the roll.
Commissioner Brock?
Yes.
Commissioner Hunter?
Yes.
Commissioner Murphy?
Yes.
Vice Mayor Fowler?
Yes.
Mayor Wise?
Yes. Thank you.
Thank you.
Appreciate it. June 12th, so mark your calendars.
We're going to have a very limber city now.
Stress-free.
Takes more than one day to get there.
The next item is consider approval of a road closure request for the Cross Anchor Union Community Hang. This is a request to close McClure Street from 11 a.m. to 10 p.m. on Saturday, June the 5th, which will be day after tomorrow. The reviews have been made and the recommendation is for your approval.
You'll give us your name and address?
Ted Bradford II at 408 Ferndale Road.
Are there any questions for the applicant?
Well, I'm just anxious to hear about what the Cross Anchor Union Community Hang is, so, but we
Well,
can.
here's your
vote on-
chance.
I'm glad you asked.
Yeah.
What we've done, fortunately, we were also a recipient of the Blue Plum Grant. So we've essentially, on Blue Plum Weekend, created a small Blue Plum type of environment. We have 7 merchants that'll be with us that day, including Local Motion. And Mahoney's going to be out with a lot of neat new products that they have to offer. 2 food trucks, and then we have 2 bands that evening. So we've kind of mixed it with art and rather the mission statement of Blue Plum, rather. Everybody okay back there? The mission statement of Blue Plum and looking at art, the community, health, music across the board. So it's going to be a really good afternoon.
I would move for approval. Second.
We have a motion and a second. If there's not objection, we'll call the roll.
Commissioner Brock?
Yes.
Commissioner Hunter?
Yes.
Commissioner Murphy?
Yes.
Vice Mayor Fowler?
Yes.
Mayor Wise?
Yes. Thank you.
Thanks a lot. Good luck.
Thank you very
We'll come
much.
down and see you.
Hope to see you Saturday.
Next order of business is consideration of a temporary occasion license for the Atlantic Ale House. This is approval of this temporary license to serve beer at the Cross Anchor Community Hang event to be held on Saturday, June the 5th, in the King Commons Amphitheater. The appropriate reviews have been made. Recommendation is for your approval.
Are there questions for the applicant? Or give us your name and address. I already know, but you could go ahead and give your name and address.
Jacob Greed, 218 West Holston.
Thank you. Are there questions for the applicant? Is there a motion? Oh, yeah, you've read the rules about selling beer here, and do you agree to abide by them? Okay, yes.
Move for approval.
Thank you.
Second.
If there's not objection, we'll call the roll.
Commissioner Brock?
Yes.
Commissioner Hunter?
Yes.
Commissioner Murphy?
Yes.
Vice Mayor Fowler?
Yes.
Mayor Wise?
Yes, tell us about what you've got in store.
That's not at all.
We're going to have fun. It's
Okay.
just a few days away.
Providing the fun beverages.
Okay, we thank you.
Next is consider approval of 2 temporary occasion license for the Rotary Foundation of Johnson City. This is for 2 different dates associated with the Fridays After 5 events to be held on June 18th and June 25th. The appropriate reviews have been made, finding no disqualifying factors. The recommendation is for approval.
Braxton Smith, 1914 Fairway Drive, before you ask.
All right. Have you read the rules and regulations? Do you agree to abide by them?
Absolutely.
We're all clear.
Should we let him hang for a minute?
Yeah.
I'd move for approval.
We have a motion and a second, a motion?
Second.
And a second. Any comments about your event?
Hope you guys come.
Okay. If there's not objection, we'll call the roll.
Commissioner Brock?
Yes.
Commissioner Hunter?
Yes.
Commissioner Murphy?
Yes.
Vice Mayor Fowler?
Yes.
Mayor Wise?
Yes.
Thank you, guys.
Appreciate it.
Next is consider approval of 2 temporary occasion license applications for the Johnson City Morning Rotary Foundation to serve beer at Friday After 5 events to be held on August 27th and September the 3rd. The appropriate reviews have been made, finding no disqualifying factors, and the recommendation is for approval.
You'll give your name and address.
It's Lindsay Harris, and I'm at 644 Eastern Star Road.
Okay. And have you read the rules and regulations concerning the sale of beer? Do you agree to abide by them?
Yes.
Okay. Are
I
there-
would move for approval. Second.
We have a motion and a second. Any further comment? Not objection, we'll call the roll.
Commissioner Brock?
Yes.
Commissioner Hunter?
Yes.
Commissioner Murphy?
Yes.
Vice Mayor Fowler?
Yes.
Mayor Wise?
Yes.
Good.
Thank you.
So that's morning Rotary. The first one was the noon Rotary Club, so.
Well, and I
two
was,
different Rotary
I was very
groups
comfortable with the
doing this.
noon Rotary, but the morning Rotary, there's some
See, I was the other
shady
way. I was-
characters
I was
involved
kind
in
of
that. Yeah. it's,
That's it. It's gonna be fun, so be there.
Thank you.
Mayor, where's the evening Rotary?
They hadn't gotten here yet.
Yeah, okay.
Okay.
We'll have to see if they're coming.
Your next order of business is consideration of the consent agenda.
Commissioner Hunter, do you have anything you wish to pull?
No.
Commissioner Brock?
I will pull 7.1.3.
Any others? Okay. Vice Mayor?
That's what I was pulling, so
So
we're good.
also Todd. Any other, you used to know, Commissioner Murphy?
No, sir.
Okay, we have just the one.
Mr. Peterson, I was pulling this because there's a change order attached to it, and am I interpreting this correctly? The change order is because this project came in under budget, and
Saving $168,000 is what it looked like. That's
Yeah.
why I was pulling it, which was.
$168,00040.
Yeah.
Actually, yes, sir.
so to the public, we don't know, we
We don't
usually.
usually get to do this.
Yeah. So I just wanted to point that out and thank the contractor and thank our staff who've managed this project and had these kind of results. This is great.
And this is the project that rehab the sewer lines down on Cherry, Buffalo,
Yeah.
State of Franklin, down through there in the downtown
Here
area.
comes Tom. We were just complimenting the change
Almost
order.
missed it.
Yeah.
Hustle up.
Okay.
Sorry.
No, I was just pointing it out that this was a savings. They came in under budget
Yes, ma'am.
on this project.
They
It's-
did.
It's a complicated project, too.
It is, as the commission's approved in previous years, we're doing about $1 million worth of sewer rehab alone a year. This was one on the Princeton Road corridor out between Oakland Avenue and upstream to the interstate. We also did a section downstream of the Science Hill campus and another section over off of Judith Drive. With sewer rehab, you never know what you're going to get into, so there was a 10% contingency that was built into the contract that we didn't have to use, so that was about $70,000. Didn't have to be done, so we did get about $160,000 in savings off of the contract.
Congratulations.
Thank you.
Sorry, I thought this was the downtown stuff. Okay.
All right, so are there other questions about anything on the consent agenda?
I'll move for approval.
We have a motion. Is there a second to
Second.
approve? Second. If there is not objection, we'll call the roll.
Commissioner Brock?
Yes.
Commissioner Hunter?
Yes.
Commissioner Murphy?
Yes.
Vice Mayor Fowler?
Yes.
Mayor Wise?
Yes.
Next order of business is consideration of ordinance number 4771-21. An ordinance to amend the zoning map of the city of Johnson City, Tennessee, being part of the appendix to ordinance number 1519, entitled an ordinance to adopt a code of laws and ordinances for the city of Johnson City, Tennessee, and to repeal all laws and ordinances in conflict therewith and mandatory thereof by changing from I-2 heavy industrial zoning and R4 medium density residential zoning to R2 low density zoning, B3 supporting central business zoning, and MX1 mixed-use neighborhood zoning, the following properties in the Mountain Home neighborhood, those properties being 207 Highland Avenue from R4 to R2, 201 Highland Avenue, 324 and 340 South Commerce from I-2 to R2, 917 West Watauga from I-2 to B3, 905 West Watauga, 312 and 316 South Commerce from I-2 to MX1, 803 West Watauga from R4 to MX1, 222 and 224 Highland from R4 to MX1, and a portion of the CC&O Railway from I-2 to B3 and R2. Ready for your consideration on first reading. Mr. Mitchell.
Thank you, Mr. Peterson, Mayor, Commissioners. I'll make this presentation shorter because you heard this at the May meeting. I believe it was May 6th. But this is coming back to you again for first reading because we've revised it a second time. And we hope that this second revision is pleasing to you, but I'll explain to you why. So just quickly again, for anyone who's seeing this for the first time, the Mountain Home neighborhood, pre-1972, it was zoned R3. In 1972, it was upzoned or rezoned to R4, R5, which is a more intensive zoning classification. Really, the idea there was to encourage infill development. What happened was instead, people began to carve up homes into multiple units, and development as expected was not, or as anticipated was not occurring. So in 2005, the community led an effort to bring the zoning back down again to R2C to protect it, which is a single-family designation. Our focus area for this rezoning and has been since our study began last year is here in the southeast corner, adjacent to Founders Park and to the new parking lot, as well as to the Greenway Trail that runs up Highland Avenue. What I brought to you back in May, we had removed various properties and really tried to slim down the rezoning to really 3 different areas. One, properties that are already owned by the city, or properties where the owners had expressed interest in being a part of the rezoning, or 3, if there was some nonconformity and we needed to correct the zoning because of the nonconformity. After that presentation on May 6th, I was contacted by one of the property owners who lives in what I call the island, this group of properties here bound by Whitney and Lamont and Commerce Street, who said, "Why did you take me out of the rezoning?" And I said, "Well, because you had not given expressed interest, had not emailed or phoned or anything, and said that you explicitly wanted to be a part of the rezoning." And so we wanted to be clear on that. And she said, "Well, my not giving objection was the same as saying that I was okay with it." And so I said, "Great, I understand. I think what we need to do, though, is let's set up a time to chat." And because she indicated that some of her neighbors also were in support of this. So I said, "I think we need to have a conversation with your group." And so what staff is proposing at this time is to remove the parcel that was the concern to the commission. So we are asking that parcel be taken out of consideration of first reading. All the other parcels remain the same as you heard them last month. And what I'd like to do is get with Mr. Blevins, as well as get with the property owners in the island, what I call it, there, and really dig deep into their desire to be a part of this rezoning, because I received a phone call, like I said, from one of the property owners that's across the street here. I don't want to call her out right now just because we haven't sat down and talked, but she was very interested in being a part of it. And I said, well, let's have a separate conversation. Let's allow this rezoning to move forward, and let's have a separate conversation. And she appreciated that, and so we will set that up. So that's why we bring it to you for first reading in an amended form.
Mr. Mitchell, thanks a lot, because I did have the concern about the ones on Whitney.
Sure.
And the owner called me to indicate the reason he wanted to include his properties is because MX1 would allow him to replat those 2 properties because they sit on one parcel now,
Right.
and he needs to separate them. And that was the only reason he was interested. And so I suggested to him to give a call to see if there's some other zoning at some point in time that he could apply for that would allow him. I mean, there looks like there's plenty of space between those two houses there, but that was what was driving his wanting to be on it. Now, if that becomes business there, you've got these houses across the street, they're going to be sitting there looking right into what that business development might look like. But thank you for that. Other people may feel differently, but I think at this point in time, that's a good thing to do if we move this forward and then
Sure.
come back and address it at another time if need be.
Right. Happy to.
Are there other questions for Mr. Mitchell? If there are not, is there a motion to take action on first reading?
I move for approval of the recommendation of rezoning in the Mountain Home neighborhood as presented.
A second.
Motion and a second. If there's not objection, can we call the roll?
Commissioner Brock?
Yes.
Commissioner Hunter?
Yes.
Commissioner Murphy?
Yes.
And Mayor Wise.
Yes.
Next order of business is consideration of ordinance number 4773-21. This is the budget ordinance. Do you want to wait until Commissioner Fowler can get back and we'll take care of the rest of the
Yes,
people's
why
business?
don't, if there's not
Sorry.
objection, why don't we,
Sorry,
since
schools are
Dustin's
here.
gotten up to the podium now, it'd be time to say we're not going to deal with the budget yet.
Very good, thank you.
So, so that would put us at 8.3 on our agenda.
4774-21, the Britton Townhomes on South Roan rezoning. For whatever reason, I don't have a caption. Here we go. An ordinance to amend the zoning map of the city of Johnson City, Tennessee, being part of the appendix to ordinance number 1519, entitled an ordinance to adopt a code of laws and ordinances for the city of Johnson City, Tennessee, and to repeal all laws and ordinances in conflict therewith, and amendatory thereof by changing from B4 planned business zoning to R5 high-density residential zoning. Certain property along South Roan Street is ready for your consideration on first reading.
Good evening.
Welcome.
As described, this property, it is vacant at the moment. It is 1.8 acres and sits between, I believe this next one is kind of a site plan, sits between a apartment complex to the south and then a manufactured home park to the north. What they are proposing are approximately 29 townhomes. They could go, like, the zoning would allow for up to 39, which is 22 units per acre. They meet the requirements of the ordinance. I've listed some of them there. And just to kind of show you between future land use and current, what we've noticed is that this area has stayed residential, even though it's been proposed to be commercial, and that going and continuing that kind of residential component would be consistent. And just to point out, this slide is just to point out the types of density that are adjacent to it, with 7 units, which is what that zoning ordinance, that zoning district would allow for mobile home parks, and then 22 units to the south. If you didn't get a chance to look at it, that's what the adjoining property owners look like. Staff recommends approval. There is a policy in the bridge plan about providing different types of housing that would support this. And then Planning Commission also recommended approval. At the Planning Commission, I want to kind of go a little bit, we had some discussion about this billboard. If you'll notice that's, if you've driven out there, there's this one particular billboard. I did talk with the engineer, and this is on their site. I'm just bringing it up because if you had questions about it, like, it is on their site, and they will, it's not, it can stay, but they would have to design around it. So that is all I have for a presentation.
The mayor had to step out and the vice mayor, so I will, as the former mayor, I'll go ahead and lead the discussion. Commissioners, are there any other questions for staff before we move forward? Anything? Okay, all right, thanks a lot. Then we'll entertain a motion.
I'll move for approval.
So is this the time we can vote in a new mayor? I'm kidding, I'm joking.
Do we have a second, Mr. Commissioner?
I
Murphy?
second.
Okay, we have a motion and a second. Is there any other discussion? Okay, hearing none. Ms. Jennings? If you'll call
Commissioner
the-
Brock?
Yes.
Commissioner Hunter?
Yes.
And Commissioner Murphy?
Yes.
Okay, thank you. Mr. Peterson?
Y'all better not leave the room, Aaron, have y'all gone.
Quick.
I think we lose our quorum if one more leaves.
Your next order of business is consideration of ordinance number 4775-21. An ordinance to amend the zoning map of the city of Johnson City, Tennessee, being part of the appendix to ordinance number 1519, entitled an ordinance to adopt a code of laws and ordinances for the city of Johnson City, Tennessee, and to repeal all laws and ordinances in conflict therewith, and amendatory thereof by changing from R2B low-density residential zoning to RP2 planned residential zoning and R2C low-density residential zoning, certain property along Highland Church Road at the intersection with Hairtown Road is ready for your consideration on first reading.
Ms. Hodges?
So I'd like to talk about this request in two parts. There is a Phase 1 change and a Phase 2 change, and I'd like to begin with Phase 2. Not because it's easier, it's just it's a place to begin. So in yellow is the part of Phase 2 that is being requested to be rezoned. A few years ago, the request for R2B was approved. What this really means is, I wanted to show a comparison chart, is some slight changes. So what they want to be able to do is to offer kind of a variety of housing type. This development in Phase 1 does that through we'll get to that slide in just a second, already does that, and this would just continue that. But that's just some side-by-side comparisons of what happens. Then in Phase 2, this area in red is where it has been R2B, and they would like to extend the RP2 zoning up just a little bit to these 6 lots. I think they would like some lot flexibility of the homes that they have prepared, or the homes that they would like to put on these lots. They need a little more flexibility. So to kind of show you with that side-by-side comparison of what those changes would entail. The lot number doesn't change. It's just inside the lot. They would like to do something different. At the planning board or planning commission meeting, there was some discussion, or a request to move the phase line that is shown here. And they've done that. This slide just hasn't been updated. But they provided that the next day. So staff is also in support of this rezoning. It just finishes out this development. The same policy from the bridge plan does apply. It allows for some flexibility and some ways to accommodate different housing price points. The planning commission also recommended approval.
Was there a neighborhood meeting that went along with this rezoning request?
There was, and no one was in attendance.
Okay, because this is right on that corner now
It
as you
is,
go
like where
around
that-
with Garland Farms across the way.
No.
No, okay.
It's back up the hill a little bit, up Highland Church Road.
Okay.
All of this is still vacant.
Okay.
I don't think anything's occupied there
No, nothing's
yet.
occupied. It's
This,
kind
this
of
is the thing that Joe Wilson and those guys did.
Yeah. Like at the Hairtown, that would be where like that pork chop intersection kind of comes together.
Yeah. So their intent then is to build some smaller, closer together garden-type homes or something?
Something like that, yes.
Okay. Commissioners, anyone have any additional questions for staff?
Nope.
Okay, is there a motion to approve?
Move approval.
We have a motion, is there a second?
A second.
A motion and a second. Any other discussion? Ms. Jennings?
Commissioner Brock?
Yes.
Commissioner Hunter?
Yes.
Commissioner Murphy?
Yes.
Mayor Wise?
Yes.
I'll turn it back to you.
Thank you. Good job, thank you.
Back to budget.
Vice Mayor's not back.
No.
Anyone heard
Second
any good
readings?
jokes lately?
We could do the.
Can we move on to second reading?
murals. We could do
There was a
murals.
motion to change mayors.
I would second that.
Let's go to ordinance number 4770-21. An ordinance to adopt and certify the bridge plan, a 5-year extension of the City of Johnson City's comprehensive plan is ready for your consideration on second reading and a continuation of the public hearing.
No changes. Kelly Duggan did a fantastic job with the presentation last time, and then you also heard from the committee chair, Chris Dagenhart. So I'm just here to answer any questions that you might have, but the public hearing continues, and this would be second reading.
So we'll remind everyone the public hearing remains open, so anyone wishing to speak for or against adoption of the bridge plan, now would be your opportunity to do that. And we'll close the public hearing. Are there questions for staff, or are we ready to make a motion on second reading?
I make a motion for second reading.
And I will second.
We have a motion and a second. Is there further comment? If not, we'll call the roll if there's not objection.
Commissioner Brock,
Yes.
Commissioner Hunter,
Yes.
Commissioner Murphy,
Yes.
and Mayor Wise.
Yes.
Next order of business, Phil, if you'll come on up. Consider approval of a resolution accepting artwork submitted per RFQ 6478 for the overpass mural project on North Run Street. If you could explain this and the funding source and placer.
We went out for proposals in February. We received RFQs. We received over 100 responses. It then was narrowed down to 3. The Public Art Committee reviewed each of the proposals and recommends Felipe Ortiz. The concept that we're trying to achieve is to improve the aesthetics of the North Run corridor. So along with this project, we'll be adding sidewalks, landscaping, et cetera, from the mall area all the way to Oakland Avenue. We'll start in July. The funding source is the general fund, comes out of our operating budget.
Other questions for Mr. Pinzola?
Is this budgeted?
It is within the Public Works operating budget, yes.
Okay. And so I also have I would love to hear more about the explanations of certain pieces of art, the meaning. Are there descriptives for each piece?
No. What he was following and what we had requested was to follow the theme that the city has adopted, go all out. And so we wanted something that was an artistic impression of that theme, which in essence would be defining who we are as a population. So if you're visiting from the airport and that sort of thing, it's one of the first things you see. If you're part of the community in that area, it kind of awakens you to what we're trying to achieve with the overall theme of the community. So the artist, we didn't necessarily want to just paint scenes. Rather, we wanted to incorporate an artistic version of what the artist sees in that theme. And so he's got, I think he's got a bicyclist, he's got a
Kayaker, I think.
different elements, and then he's got, we got into pollination, and that's sort of a theme of the community, is to enhance pollination, so we plant some flowers and things like that. So his artwork was the most vibrant that I've seen. It's even more vibrant than anything we've put up. It really pops. And so the committee was working with them on adjusting some of the scenes. You will pass, if you pass this, then you're essentially also approving a resolution, because we have to go to TDOT to get approval to paint on their walls. But we thought they would consider it first so that we'd have it clean to come to you. But in fact, they wanted the resolution from you prior to them considering the matter. So I can't, it shows active community, and then it shows some of the surrounding areas, and then the pollination.
I think they're beautiful, and I think they do depict in an artistic way the activities of our area and who we are. I particularly like the last one because, as y'all may know, we are on the monarch butterfly flight path. And if we would make some concerted efforts to go ahead and plant more attractive pollinators for the monarchs, we could probably get them to stop over a little bit longer. But when I saw this one as the last one, I was just really excited about it. But I think they're beautiful and very colorful. I think it will really impress people getting off the interstate and seeing that. It should have a real calming effect, I would imagine.
I would add that they are beautiful pieces, and I want to appreciate you all for thinking about putting anti-graffiti coating on the finish, because we have some freelance artists out here these days, and so just protecting what we instill and install as a city is important. So thank you for that.
Yeah, I was going to highlight that as well, because I'm sure there'll be people that'll question if there's going to be some sort of protection of that. Is that also going to be on the walls that are painted blank, the anti-graffiti coatings?
Our experience has been that they're not bothering the artwork that's on the various walls around town. It's kind of just trying to take the blank stuff and doing something with it. So they're actually mindful of the artwork that's going up for some reason. It's kind of nice.
Do you know any background on Mr. Ortiz and his experience and whatnot by chance?
I saw, we saw a number of his works that are around the nation, primarily in sort of the Boston area, and they really stood out. It was very vivid, I'll put it that way, and I just love his use of colors. He likes to do nature scenes and animals and that sort of thing. So we kind of had to talk him in to put people in the.
When is this likely to take place if TDOT approves it?
He would probably start immediately. So if TDOT took until August or so, we would start then, but our construction will start prior to that.
Mayor, I would make a motion to approve.
We have a motion. Is there a second?
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Any further discussion? If not, we'll.
Mayor, can I add, you've got a resolution in here. We're going to need a contract. So could you amend your motion to approve the resolution and authorize either myself or the mayor to sign the contract with the artist so that we can pay him?
Okay, I will amend my motion to include approval of the resolution and the authority of the mayor or the city manager to sign the contract with the artist.
Is there a second?
I'll second.
Okay. If there's not objection, we'll call the roll.
Commissioner Brock?
Yes.
Commissioner Hunter?
Yes.
Commissioner Murphy?
Yes.
Mayor Wise?
Yes. Okay, we've run out of things to talk about.
Talk
Except
about
for
key financial statistics, Janet.
Exactly.
We like having Dr. Barnett here. We could just stay for a while. You want to take up the budget ordinance now?
I think we should, yes.
All right. Dustin? Yes, sir. Please, sir. The next order of business is consideration of ordinance number 4773-21, an ordinance to establish the property tax rates, appropriate funds, and adopt a budget for the fiscal year July the 1st, 2021 through June 30th, 2022. Is ready for your consideration on first reading and public hearing. I would point out, we've talked about the budget at length. Probably what we haven't talked to you about are the property tax rates. This budget does not include a property tax hike. The property tax rate within Washington, those properties located in Washington County will be $1.71 per $100 of assessed value. Those properties located within Carter County will have a levy at a rate of $1.83 per $100 of assessed value. And those properties located within Sullivan County will have a rate of $1.95 upon each $100 of assessed value of taxable property. Both of those up for reappraisal this year?
Carter and Sullivan.
Carter and Sullivan will be reappraised this year, so in all likelihood, we will be coming back to you sometime August or September with a little bit of luck to amend the property tax rates in those two counties, those two
Does not
counties only.
mean increasing or decreasing taxation, it's just reallocating to align to the new assessed values.
That's correct. A property tax reappraisal cannot result in additional revenue to the local government.
And we knew you weren't seeking a property tax increase because we can do math. You didn't have to tell us about it.
I just want to make sure we got that read into the record. No tax increases.
Yes. It's not like you slipped that one by us, Pete.
I tried, you know. Dustin, if you would, please, sir.
Thank you very much, Commissioners. Good evening. I'm going to quickly walk through the manager's proposed budget. For general fund revenue, we're projecting at $94.4 million. As you can see, the bulk of your revenue comes from local taxes, property tax, sales tax, and the like. Here's a list of those. State sales tax as well. Our expenses in the general fund, as presented to you currently, are at $100.5 million. And here is a breakdown of your operating budget for a total of $71 million. These are all the departments, as you can see. Here are the operating transfers out. This funds capital equipment, debt service, schools, and the like. The building blocks for this budget, we've got planned a 4% pay adjustment. That is included. We do have a 5% health insurance increase included in this budget. There are new and upgraded positions, as well as positions that were frozen in the FY21 budget, that we have proposed to fund in this FY22 budget. We've budgeted for an increase cost in fuel and then debt service, which we'll talk about in a little while. Here's a list of capital equipment for the general fund for development services, facilities, fire, and IT. Here's a list for police and public works. And for student transportation, the total of the equipment is $7.5 million, and you can see the breakdown in the funding sources. Here's some other capital equipment for some other funds for fleet management, mass transit, and some vehicles and a K-9 funded out of the police drug fund. For parks and facilities, we're at $2.5 million as proposed, and you can see the list there. It does include the grant-funded Blue Cross Blue Shield Outdoor Complex for some skylights at Freedom Hall and other improvements, as well as playgrounds for Parks and Rec and restrooms at Tannery Knob. Here's the funding for infrastructure at present at 16.3. And there are various projects. As you'll notice, most of these projects are, the bulk of their funding is federal or state funding. We do have the year one of the West Walnut Street improvements in here, as well as funding for the Wingdeer Park access road. Just to highlight a few other departments outside of the general fund, for mass transit, we do have three positions that we did cut out of mass transit. They were long-time vacant positions, so we proposed to eliminate those. In municipal solid waste, they are proposing to add one position, an MEO2 in refuse and yard waste. For regional, There's a position requested, one additional sanitation equipment operator. Here's a list of solid waste equipment for both municipal and regional for a total of $617,000. Stormwater did not request any additional employees. And here's the capital for stormwater, a couple of vehicles, and some cash fund, and the big one is their part of West Walnut Street.
Can we back up just one to
Sure.
that one? And Mr. Peters, I meant to ask you earlier today, the Buffalo Valley Stream Bank Mitigation Program, has that been finally approved? Are we, I see we're funding it, so.
We are really close. It's going back and forth between our design folks and the Corps of Engineers and TDEC. I think we're really, really close to getting that finalized and approved. And I would point out, this is an expenditure of $300,000 this year, but over 5 years, once that work's completed, over 5 years, there's about $2 million worth of stream bank credits there. So the net there will be, well, it should be well in excess of $1.5 million.
Just for the benefit of the public, you might define what stream bank credits are.
The creeks and the ponds through the golf course were man-made, man-altered, and were regularly maintained to golf course standards. And the purpose of the stream bank credits is to eliminate the ponds and to restore native vegetation and native wildlife back into those streams to get them back to their original native state. And in exchange for doing that, there's the opportunity to sell credits. And what that is, if someone is doing, well, I'll give you a real world example. This will be easy to follow. 20 years ago, when they made major improvements at the Bristol Motor Speedway, they disrupted and moved a creek up there in order to do some of their work. And they needed some offsetting stream bank enhancements in order to not to end up with a net neutral impact on streams in the region. So what this will do, we'll go ahead and do the work to restore these to their natural state. And then at some point in time, and TDOT does this a lot in road building, they will need some stream bank credits due to some work they're doing on a road. They can come and pay us for the stream bank credits we've already created, and that's what they need to do their project, and we get rewarded monetarily for creating those
And we
natural
never
stream banks.
disturb that creek in the future.
No, in fact, that's part of the requirements, that the stream cannot be disturbed in the future, and there will be permanent easements placed on that stream. Yes, ma'am.
Here's Water Sewer's budget. They are requesting 3 new employees and then some upgrades as well. And here's their capital. You sat through Mr. Witherspoon's budget, and also heard from Mr. Lane and his capital report, so I won't go into great detail there. But for schools, we have proposed to increase their maintenance of effort by $750,000. Of course, we budget for student transportation. As I mentioned earlier, we've budgeted for 7 school buses, 5 large and 2 small. We've also proposed to fund $668,000 for certain equipment related to the middle school transition. And then in the PEP fund, we've got 10.5 budgeted, the bulk being the additions at Lake Ridge and Woodland, and some wrap-up work at Southside and Indian Trail, plus the field turf, which you recently approved.
The 4th bullet is one-time money, correct?
Yes, ma'am. Here's the quasi request and quasi budget for 22 at $3.7 million. That's about $155,530 increase year to year. So as part of this budget, we would ask that you consider the following 6 amendments. The first one is, you may have noticed earlier, the Knob Creek Phase 2 I had highlighted in red. After discussions this week, that project will be administered by the state. It will not run through our books. so we don't need to show it if you would vote to remove that from our budget. Number 2 is the request to add $25,000 for 911. The 3rd, 4th, and 5th points are all related. We propose to add an additional $18 million in debt, with the debt service interest-only payment for 22 being $198,000. You'd pick up full P&I in FY '23. And that's for $5 million additional dollars for West Walnut. And then this funds the $13 million for the Diamond Fields at Wingdeer Park. As a part of that, we originally proposed to cash fund $850,000 for design at Wingdeer Park. Those design costs are rolled into the $13 million bond issue, so we need to take out the cash for that. And point number 5, because the request is to issue $13 million for the Diamond Fields, we propose to budget $6 million for this year from the GO bonds and budget the remaining $7 million in FY '23. And then the last point, Mr. Wilson got an updated debt number for the animal shelter debt service, and this just reflects that change. It's a minor reduction. So in total, I only listed what was changed from your original budget ordinance, but the important number is the bottom line. The budget, as we request you to amend it, in total, and that's all funds, general fund, all the enterprise funds, all the school funds, debt service capital, everything, is $302 million plus. And we would recommend your approval after public hearing. Do you have any questions?
Are there questions for Dustin? If not, go ahead.
Yeah,
Sharon.
well, this is first readings, and we'll have 3 readings.
Yes.
In the meantime, if there are changes to this budget, we would do it through a budget amendment. Is that correct?
Whatever you approve this evening could be amended in the subsequent 2 readings, or at any given time during the coming fiscal year, you could do a budget amendment that would alter whatever you pass on 3rd reading during this process. Yes, ma'am.
And reminding everyone, per our charter, first reading is public hearing, so the next stage is to, and unless there's anything further from staff, the next stage would be to open the floor to public hearing on the budget and then vote on it at first reading.
Correct, sir.
So at this point, we'll open the floor for public hearing, one at a time, please. Don't rush each other. We'll welcome you to the podium. Seeing none, we'll close the public hearing and look to the commission for action on first reading.
I do have a couple of other comments, if appropriate right now. This is a big budget. This is probably the biggest budget, Mr. Peterson, the city has ever submitted. Is that a true statement?
To my recollection, that is correct. And I would point out, this budget reflects a lot of capital equipment and a lot of capital projects, which really inflates the overall budget number. There are, well, you're going to have $22 million worth of Walnut Street. You've got $13 million worth of ball fields. You've got $20 million worth of school buildings, thereabouts.
$5 million worth of last year's capital.
Right. We didn't do any capital equipment last year other than a smattering that was funded by one-time money from the state. So this year, we're trying to catch up on capital equipment that we deferred last year because of the uncertainty of the revenue stream coming in during FY '21. So there's a lot of catch-up. There is a fair amount of one-time money coming from the state and the federal governments in here, although I will point out, none of the most recent, whatever they calling it,
Recovery money.
the ARP, the recovery money, the Biden bucks, whatever you want to call it. There's $13 million coming to the city of Johnson City. None of that is in this budget. The rules have not been finalized on how that money can be spent. So we have purposefully not included any of that money in this budget until the rules are finalized and we know for sure how it can be spent. We will be getting half of that $13 million hopefully next week or the following week, and a year from now, we will get the balance. We have until December of 2024 to obligate the money, and we have until December of 2026 to expend it all. So while there are a number of things that everyone would like to do, there's no need to get in a real big hurry right now before we fully understand how that money can be utilized and to really take a deep evaluation of our needs in this community to ensure that we make great investments that will have a long-term positive return to the community. So there's a lot of one-time money there, and there's another pot of money out there. We need to wait and see what the final rules are going to be.
Well, I think
And,
that's,
and I'm sorry, could you comment a little bit too on some of that money? It looks like a really big number, but when you look at the preliminary guidance given for how that money can be spent, it's not super clear that we're going to be able to spend more than small percentages of the money that's been allocated. So it's a great big number, but we may only be able to come up with $1 million out of 13 that we can spend here.
There are 4 broad categories that are permitted uses. One of them being lost revenues to the local government as a result of the pandemic. We may or may not qualify for any of that. There's a possibility we won't qualify for anything. That may be a zero, because overall, we didn't take a great big hit, but the federal government, in its infinite wisdom, has this very complicated formula that you run things through to determine if you did lose money or not. One of the other broad categories is infrastructure, and right now that is limited to water, sewer, stormwater, and broadband. So none of that helps our general fund whatsoever. It appears there is the potential to spend money on facility improvements that would prevent the future spread of virus, physical changes, ventilation things like they're ESSER money eligible, those types of things. But it's not a blank check. It's anything but. We're going to have to analyze carefully and be very creative in our thinking, I think, before we're going to be able to utilize all of that money.
And the ESSER money, for those who don't know, is basically the corollary money to this that went to schools.
Yes, sir.
So, and they're able to use it on HVAC and some of those things.
Yes,
Would
sir.
be the reference you were making. Okay.
Yes, sir. So this again, this is a very big number, but a tremendous amount of this is one-time money, and it's one-time projects in order to try to get caught up a little bit and to make investments in our community that will return dividends for many decades to come.
the point I wanted to make to the public, really, more than anything, our budget is a big, big budget this year. And we are proposing this budget that has a lot of investment in it, and Mr. Peterson referred to that. West Walnut Street is going to be a huge game changer. There are several projects that when we can make these investments, we will start seeing this return. Another one I really wanted to bring the attention to is the expansion of Wing Deer Park. So building out additional ball fields, and there's a couple of reasons there where we see it's going to be a great return. One is we just don't have enough ball fields and rectangular fields for our own citizens and youth in this city. Everybody knows that has children or grandchildren, you know, we're always waiting to get a field or the adults who are playing softball have to practice at 9 o'clock at night. So that expansion is going to create Winged Deer Park as a great sports complex. The second thing that it will achieve too will be a destination for tournaments, for out-of-town tournaments. And when we see these folks coming into town and they spend 3 or 4 or 5 days here playing in a tournament, they bring great value to the city. And this is kind of the organic growth that when we do these kind of things, then we start seeing our sales tax increasing. Of course, our businesses love it because we've got a lot of people in town who leave their money behind. And so when the sales tax comes in, it helps the schools, it helps all of us. And so I see this as a great investment, plus just improving the quality of place, as we call it here in Johnson City, for our own citizens. And we're doing this $300 million budget without a tax increase. And I think that shows just the great fiscal management of the city, and Mr. Peterson, for you and the staff who kind of keep us in line to direct us toward these investments. We appreciate that a lot. And we appreciate this. So with that, I will make a motion on first reading to approve the budget as, the city manager's budget as submitted.
Second.
There's a motion.
May- May I
With
say
the
that-
amendments or without the
May I request that you make them with the proposed amendments?
With the proposed amendments.
Thank you.
Second.
I don't know, let's vote on Dustin's. No, so there's a motion and a second with the proposed amendments.
Proposed amendments.
Is there further question or comment? If not, without objection, we'll call the roll.
Commissioner Brock.
Yes.
Commissioner Hunter.
Yes.
Commissioner Murphy.
Yes.
Vice Mayor Fowler.
Yes.
Mayor Wise.
Yes. Mr. Peterson, just for the benefit of those seeing us through the process of approving a $300 million budget, this was first reading. We will take this up again on a second and third reading. Second reading will occur a week from today. I'm sorry, not a week from this coming Tuesday.
We are currently planning on having second reading this coming Tuesday, which is the 8th of June at 7:30 a.m. here in the commission chambers. We will properly notice all of that, probably be in the paper Saturday. Because we're not going to get it in tomorrow's paper, other than our good friend, Mr. Floyd, getting it in his front page story this evening.
That doesn't count.
That doesn't
Public
count for
notice.
public notice, it doesn't.
So that would be Tuesday. Third reading would occur at our usual
2 weeks
meeting,
from
which would be
tonight.
2 weeks from tonight. Just so folks know how this will play forward. And any part of the budget would be subject to any possible amendment or change at any of those three until it's approved on third reading.
That is correct, sir.
Okay. So at this point, I think we're at public input.
That is correct, sir.
We had one request for public input from Linda Evans. We welcome her to the podium. Now, during public input, we ask that you direct your comments to the commission, limit them to 3 minutes. If there are others here to speak on that topic, don't repeat things that others have made. And because it's a time for the commission to listen, we won't be responding to specific input or taking action on it, but certainly taking it into consideration in future decision-making. Commissioner Hunter, would you be a quiet timekeeper? Sure. But if you'll give your name and address and then your remarks, please.
Absolutely. Thank you. I am Linda Evans. My address is 280 Evans Lane, Chuckey, and I am here to represent the Johnson City Farmers Market. Thank you for the opportunity for allowing us to speak. We did send some information to the commissioners earlier today, and I hope that you did receive that. If you did not, hopefully look at your email and you'll be able to find that. The information that you received is basically a short summary of the market and where we stand. And as you guys were reviewing the budget, I thought it was really ironic that we were following up with concerns regarding our budget and the very reason that we're here to address the commissioners. Of course, historically, Farmers Market has had a contract with JCDA since the inception of the pavilion, I think, for $1 for a fee for use of the pavilion. And last year, however, that increased to $125 per month, which it's our understanding was to help offset the Wi-Fi that was installed at the pavilion. However, this year, and I'm not really certain of all the dynamics that's played, but I do understand that there's a separate or a different department perhaps that took over the management of some of the facilities, which means that the fee structure that was set in place years ago had been reborn, so to speak. And so we were made aware as the market board that the fee would be $150 for nonprofit agencies such as ourselves for a half a day rental. And that's per day. And that is where the issue for us comes in. Of course, we are a nonprofit. We're a 501c5. And our income for our agency is basically that of fees, vendor fees, which is on a daily basis. And then, of course, we charge membership fees. The issue, though, is that we met March the 2nd as a board, and we reviewed our budget, we went over our application, we did all the things in preparation for opening day for us, which is May 1st. And at that time, we did not understand that there was any type of rate increase for us. And of course, when we were advised of the possibility and then for sure was made aware of what the rate increase would be the 1st of May, it really set us back. Basically, I just want to be real upfront and say our market can't afford $150 a day. It's the farmers that are there. The pavilion basically can have like 38 to 40 slots, vendor slots. However, in 2020 and in 2021, that's been cut in half because of the social distancing and the way that we've been required to set up our booth spaces, and therefore we only have half of what we have. So does that little bell mean I'm done?
I'm assuming unless John's good, but you finish your
Well,
remarks.
thank you, I appreciate that. I told my group, I said, I can't say anything in 3 minutes. Never been able to do that. But basically, we're really restricted because of the number of vendor booths that we have and the fact that we have been cut down because of COVID. It is our desire that we stay at the pavilion, but I just want to be real upfront and real honest as spokesperson for the board. We can't afford that, and we have already explored some additional options. We feel very strongly that our market brings a lot of value to the folks downtown. It's not just a place where the producers and all of our vendors, it's not just where we come and sell whatever we have. It's a place where we interact with the community. We hope that we're educating some of the youth there as to what farmers do. We also participate with some of the communities. Recently, we had a Kids Day partnered with Frontier Health. We have a partnering coming up, hopefully, with Ballad to do a vaccination clinic. So we try to join hands and form partnerships with a lot of the agencies that come to us. It's just our hope that you, as the commission, will take a really hard look at the fee structure and will reconsider what's being asked of the commission, of our board, because honestly, as I said, we just can't do that. So, if you have any questions, I'll be happy to entertain whatever you have. I do want to add, however, that Kingsport and Bristol, as a side note, don't charge anything to their farmers markets for use of their facilities. It's kind of interesting. Tried to do just a little bit of research.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks a lot.
Just out of curiosity, Mr. Peterson, the limitation on the booths associated with the farmers market, is that a city policy at this point for 21?
As far as I know, there is no limitation. Now that the governor has taken the action that he did, there is no distance.
So they could go back to 38 or whatever the number would be.
You can do 40 at the pavilion with no
Okay.
problem now.
It's
I mean,
40 under
$5
the
a head,
pavilion,
that's
then others
$200.
What's that?
At $5 a booth, that's $200. But there is no distance requirement.
Okay,
at this
thank
time.
you.
Yes, sir.
What else do we have on our agenda, sir?
Janet, can you do financials in 7 minutes?
No, I think financials in 5. That has
Okay.
a catchy ring to it.
Financials in 5.
Thank you.
It'll be short and sweet. I felt that coming for some reason. I'll hit the highlights. How's that? So this will be through 10 months of the year. And property taxes. So property taxes comprise 40% of the general fund budget, so it's a very significant revenue. They were budgeted at just over 35 million. And we would expect to be able to collect about 98% of our billings. We've been doing excellent on first year collections. So through April, we've actually billed more than we budgeted to bill. So we've billed 36 million, which exceeds budget by 239,000. At essentially 98% collection, we'll collect all but about 5,000 of that. So we should exceed budget. The short story is we'll exceed budget on property taxes. Feel very confident in that. Compared to the prior year through April, the billings grew by $287,000. So we should collect, so far through 10 months, our actual collections of those billings have grown $251,000. Our collection rate stands at 97.4%, and we have 2 months left to go to get us to closer to 98%. I feel good that we'll get close to that 98% collection rate. As far as sales tax, this has been probably the most surprising thing that we've seen this year. There was so much uncertainty beginning last March with the closings of the retailers and the restaurants for a month, and then coming back at kind of limited capacity. A lot of stores stayed closed for a period of time and did the curbside business. We just did not know what was going to happen coming into the new year. So we've been extremely surprised and happy, very, very happy at how sales taxes have performed. In looking at some of the raw numbers, it appears that the online sales, and it makes a lot of sense, but the online sales just went through the roof. So, I assume with some of the incentives and some of the stimulus that was distributed by the government, that kept the spending going. So it certainly worked. So for the month of March, because the sales tax does lag a couple of months behind the retail activity, so as we speak here, I only have 9 months of activity on sales tax. But for the month of March only, we had 39% growth from last March. Most of the shutdowns occurred around the end of March. March year-to-date, we are at 11% growth year-to-year. And then compared to the budget, we budgeted extremely conservative. We're up 26% over where we budgeted because of the conservative budgeting. So in a nutshell, those are your two revenues that comprise over 2/3 of your general fund budget. There are no concerns with any of the other budgets, any of the other revenues, any of the other departmental spending. Everybody's on track and doing a great job with their spending, even with the decreases that we tried to build into the budget for this current year. So it's a really positive outlook for this year.
How does March compare to 2019, or this March, how does it compare to 2019? If it's not handy, that's okay.
Well, I don't have the numbers with me, but it's going to be more than, I'm going to guess, probably closer to 40% over 2 years ago, because we had growth. We had growth last March. I think April was the month. Let me see here. Before I say that.
April's where you really saw the waiver.
April's where it started getting soft. We were still okay in March.
Now, you've brought up something, Commissioner Brock, that you know me, I can be the conservative worrywart. Next year's budget, y'all need to be really, really careful, because you've got FY '20 to where you had a couple of months of shutdown and this huge infusion of stimulus money. FY '21, you've had this huge infusion of stimulus money, and for 13 months, nobody could travel. Look at your white goods sale, your TV sales, your consumable goods, your home improvements. Those folks had years like they could never dream for in the last 13 months. That's not going to go on forever. So when you all do your budget next year, and I just say this because I'm not going to be here, but I'll be rooting you on, trust me. Be really careful and go back and look at FY '18 and '19 and start making your revenue estimates with a lot of influence by those 2 years, and don't rely on FY '20 and '21, because you're going to get lulled into a bad situation, I'm afraid. So I'll be quiet on the gloom and doom, but
Finding the cloud in every silver lining.
yeah,
Peterson.
That's good advice, though.
you know, history is a very good forecaster
enough.
of the future.
Are there questions for Ms. Jennings? If not, is there anything further for the commission?
I've got nothing to report.
Governor was in town in Jonesboro earlier this week, and it was a great celebration in Jonesboro. I don't know how many people were there, but someone said
was a lot.
2,500-ish or
That's
so.
about right.
So it was a good afternoon.
Vice Mayor?
History's being made right now, the first Johnson City Doughboys game. I represented the commission and went over and threw out the first pitch and made it back for the budget vote still, but big crowd over there already, and even with the threat of rain, they have a huge turnout, so it's going to be.
And
it's gonna be good.
fireworks
Fireworks
still
after that,
coming.
so still have time to go to the game after this.
Make a
So,
strike?
I did.
All right.
Commissioner?
Yes, sir. I want to make mention that it was a joy to be a part of the Carver Recreation Center splash pad ribbon cutting last week. Commissioner Brock, Vice Mayor Fowler were present, among other leaders here in the community, and so just want to make mention that that was a good thing to happen to our city. Also, last week, I was able to sit in on some of the new police officer assessments and interviews, and I just want to make mention that our police chief, Carl Turner, is doing a phenomenal job along with his team. They were asking some very, very tough questions, and I'm very confident that we have a really good police department here in our city. So I hope our citizens know that they're vetting through candidates and they're picking the right ones to serve and also protect our community.
Thank you. The last couple of weeks, I've had occasion to be in Kingsport a number of times. Bays Mountain marked its 50th anniversary a week or two ago, and they'll be celebrating that all year and making a significant investment there. And so I and others, regional mayors were there along with a lot of the Kingsport folks. Today, the regional tourism folks did their Pinnacle Awards, and you can be proud of the Johnson City CVB and the city's PR and communications office and several others in Washington County, Jonesboro also being recognized for a number of different initiatives and programs. And so just to acknowledge the work of Brenda and Jenna and Keisha and JT and Andy and others who've been a part of each and every one of those programs. So that's all I know.
Thank you.
Hit the gap.
What's that? Is there anything else, Mr. Peterson?
No, sir.
All right, well then, we stand adjourned.